And it's time for another episode of Justapod, and we're going back to the Neenah Rockets once again. We spoke with Andy Burnell not too long ago, the girls' coach. We want to welcome in Lee Rabas in his 11th year. Hey, Coach Rabas, thanks for joining us on Justapod.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So you have had quite a run at a number of different schools, but you've been at Neenah now 11 years, and it's been a great ride. We talk about the Neenah history. I talked about it with Coach Brunell on the girls' side, and obviously Ron Einerson going back, just unbelievable. 566 wins, couple of state titles. Tell you what, Coach, you've held up your end of the bargain, to say the least. You've been to the state tournament in Madison 4 different times, including 3 in a row in 22, 23, 24. Let's talk about the legacy of this Neenah program and how you've been able to really continue it on, and expectations always high. You guys are 4-0 in the FVA. You're 5-1 overall to kick off this campaign. Just talk about your time at Neenah so far, and just how much does the history really play into things for you, and how seriously do you take, you know, keeping this program at a high level as it's been over many years?
Well, first of all, I'm a basketball person. I love the history of the game, and so obviously, I buy into the history. Very respectful of the not only the players and coaches before us, but all the parents who have invested a great deal of time into the program. I always say that our job is to just keep the train is on the tracks, and our job is to just keep moving it forward. And there's been a lot of players, a lot of coaches, and a lot of families, that have uh, done amazing things to continue to make this program, one of the most revered in the state. And we've been blessed over my 10 years to just have a lot of really good players and really good families, and that makes the coaching part of it a lot easier.
State champions in 2022, and then a couple of epic games. One in particular, 2024, the state semis, Arrowhead 99-95 in 4 overtimes. I had the pleasure of actually doing that broadcast with former head coach Mike Shallow from Kokona. That was very entertaining. You lost to Arrowhead in 23 as well in the state semis. And then another visit back in 2019. I wanted to get into your coaching history here a little bit. You're a native of the Kewanee area, and people that might be listening in and you hear that last name of Rabas, there was a very legendary coach in Kewanee, football coach by the name of Don Rabas. Let's talk about your humble beginnings as you grew up in that area. You obviously played for Don, a graduate of Kewanee High School. Let's start there and maybe get into, at what point did you start thinking, hey, you know what, I'm going to go on to school, which you did, UW La Crosse. When did this coaching thing kind of really hit you in your early days in Kewanee?
Yeah, so and obviously, grew up in Kewanee, played baseball in summer, football in the fall, basketball in the winter, right? Back then, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for playing summer like there are now. Mostly in summer, you played at open gyms against graduates in town. Like, I can remember playing against Jack Novak and Charlie Novak in
Yeah.
open gyms. I'm sure that those are names that will ring a bell. Remember Bruce Koshart would teach us young guys lessons. His son ended up playing, I think, for the Bengals, got drafted, played at South Dakota State. So, uh, just a really unique time. Like, grew up on a farm, and open gyms in summer weren't something that we are like, oh, we have open gym tonight. It was like the reward for you, whether it was you were doing farm work all day, and your reward was you got to go to open gym at night, and then maybe hang out and play sheephead with your friends afterward at night. So it was good. The coaching part, obviously Don was a major, just the way he, conducted our football program, and Bob Murphy and Fred Schrader, Mick Jade, and all those guys had an impression on me. But it was really the summer of 1988. I went to basketball camp at UW Green Bay, and the very first time I heard, Dick Bennett and Mike Heidemann and Steve Swan talk, I was hooked. And I got home from that camp, and I at that point I was wanted to do something in sports. Didn't know really what, but I got home from that camp, and I just said to my mom, I have to get a teaching. I have to go get a teaching degree so I can coach basketball. And then actually, I was going to go to Rockford College in Illinois after my senior year, and some things happened. Ended up backing out of that and going to UW La Crosse, which, funny story, my roommate my first 2 years was actually from Neenah, not knowing how things would end up for me. Um, and while I was at school in La Crosse, I coached as an assistant for 3 years at La Crosse Aquinas. Actually, my first year coaching was at uh, was at La Crosse Aquinas for 1 year. And that was back when, we traveled to Chippewa, Wausau, Stevens Point. Our away games were really away games. And then for 3 years, I coached at La Crosse Logan. For 2 years, I worked with Charlie Gross at UW La Crosse. And then in 1996, 97, I got hired to teach in Neenah. So my first year, I worked with Tim Hoffensberger with the Neenah program. Then I was fortunate when Bob Biebel moved on to St. Mary's in Minnesota. I got hired to be the boys basketball coach at Xavier High School for 7 seasons, and then from there, had an opportunity to move over to the college side with an invitation from John Tharp. So then I worked with the Lawrence University men's program from '04 to '09. Then John Myron, the longtime coach at Kimberly, made me aware of that UW Fox Valley was looking for a head coach. So from 2009 to 2015, for 6 seasons, I was the head coach there. My last year, I was actually also the athletic director at UW Fox Valley. And then in the spring of 2015, after Scott Bork stepped down at Neenah, I applied for the job again, and um, interviewed for, I think that was the third time, and finally was, given the opportunity to lead this program.
Well, that turns out to be a pretty good hire then, I would say. 11 years in, 194 victories. We already talked about the state appearances, but I love some of the old Kiwani names. Jack Novak, yeah. If you don't know, Jack Novak played at Wisconsin, got drafted by Tampa Bay, ended up in Cincinnati, but got
Yes,
derailed by injury, I
injuries. Yep.
believe, right? Yep.
Yeah, yes, but playing, open gym against those guys, they taught you lessons. you,
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
got you got tough and physical, and they taught you a lot about being tough.
Yeah, Jack Novak had sharp elbows. I actually played recreational basketball. There was a rec league in Kiwani back in the day because I used to work out in that area of previous employment. And I'll tell you what, Jack Novak on a basketball court, you can see why he was a professional athlete. The intensity level of that guy was just off the charts.
It was. It made for great open gyms back then, and really, like, formidable. When growing up, it's one of those things that you don't forget.
No, indeed you don't. So let's talk a little FVA basketball. What a conference this is. Kaukauna and your Rocket team, both 4-0. Kaukauna number 6 in the most recent coaches poll. And Appleton North, don't sleep on the Lightning. This is a very good basketball team. They're 3-1 in conference. They're number 9 right now in the most recent poll. Let's talk about the FVA before you get talking about your roster a little bit. How tough is this conference? I mean, if it's not the best, it's darn close, but talk about the battles every single night in this conference.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good conferences in our state, so I don't get into that the whole, like, and our conferences, the FEA is obviously in that conversation. And every night you have to bring your A game. And, if you don't, bad stuff can happen, and that's how the FEA has been. for the 10 years that I've been in, and this year will be no different. You alluded to, obviously, Appleton North and Kaukauna are really good teams, but Kimberly is putting together a nice season. Um, Oshkosh North is a formidable, and has some really good players, really good coaching. Uh, Fond du Lac, Hortonville, Appleton East, and, uh, everybody brings something to the table, including, and that includes Appleton West. So, just from top to bottom, you have to be ready to play at all times.
I want to talk about your team specifically defensively. You're 5-1, your last 5 wins, you have been giving up an average of 42 points per game. Let's talk about your makeup of your roster a little bit. Not exactly explosive offensively. You only have one double digit scorer currently, your senior Nick Schultz. But how much is your team buying in on the defensive end? And apparently they are early on in the season. Let's start on the defensive side.
Well, we're hoping that they're buying in. There's still room for improvement there. I don't feel like we've really put together like a 36-minute game on that side of the floor. So we continue to work at it, and it's something that, in my philosophy, has always been that that defense and rebounding are where you build successful teams and programs. So we do focus a lot there, and with this group, hopefully, we can continue to get better and get to where we want to be.
Yeah, it's always a very well balanced team. You guys aren't dominated by a single player. I know Brady Corso a couple years ago was just an absolutely phenomenal player. But let's start with maybe some of your key guys. Let's start talking about Nick Schultz, your leading scorer, your senior. Talk about him a little bit and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, so we have three players that were were sophomores on the 2023-2024 team, and that would be Nick started almost all the games that season, not all of them, but a lot, and played a lot. Cal Juckham was up on varsity that year, as was Roan Caper. So so those three guys were through that season, the lows at the start of the year, and the highs as we move through January, February, and into March. So, they've been around. They know what it's about, and we try to lean on them for leadership. Nick, Nick is still, like, Nick's best years are ahead of him as he continues to, his body continues to mature, and as he gets older, he's going to his best years, like, it's the best way for me to put it. His best years are out in front of him. Skilled, can shoot it, can play off the dribble a little bit, and is providing us, leadership. So, and that's an important thing. Cal last year dislocated his knee on January 7th against Hortonville, like 5 minutes into the game. Was a gruesome injury at the time, and didn't play, obviously, the rest of the season, which hurt us. And then didn't play this summer. Did start playing again in fall, and gradually working his way back into any time when when you don't play for 7 months. It takes some time to get back, and he's working his way back into where we need him to be, and Rowan has continued to just get better throughout his 3 years, and that you can see that in his play early in the season.
One thing I looked at with your roster, a lot of juniors. Sounds like
Yep.
you got a very strong junior class. Maybe talk about that a little bit, and just what those guys really mean to the program, and how they're building up for hopefully a run in their senior year, obviously next year.
Yeah, and so our JV team last year, we had one sophomore moved up, Xavier Bazaris, and then towards the end of the year, we moved up Colton Fleege, and we moved up Matthias Charles towards the end of the year. But our JV team was 22-0 last year, and put together a nice season. And so far this year, they are contributing and doing a great job. Colton's been really solid for us. on both the defensive side and on the offensive side. Xavier got off to a nice start, against Appleton West, and then tweaked his ankle, so he's been out the last two games and won't play tonight against Appleton East. Jackson Rint has had two nice outings. He had a 13-point effort against Oshkosh North and three threes. We were down 10 with like 7 minutes to go, and Jackson knocked down three threes to kind of be a catalyst to get us going and help us in that comeback win, and then added some more on last Friday night against Oshkosh West. Chase Nitz has started for us a little bit and been a really solid defender and all around player for us. And then Jacob Youngworth has come off the bench. He had 18 points against Appleton West. Had a double-double, I think, against Oshkosh North. So he's provided us, we have a nice 1-2 punch with him and Roan, where, when you can start a 6'9" kid and then bring a 6'7" kid off the bench and not lose any production, that's pretty special at the high school level. And then the rest of the juniors, like just a really Matthias Charles provides us with some real defensive toughness and an ability to get to the basket. And just several more guys there, Tyler Clark, Gavin Keepers, who provide us, some ability to just, whether it's toughness defensively, Gavin can shoot the basketball. And then Ashton Van Beek, who's our, quarterback on the football team, hasn't been able to suit up yet, but we hope to get him back sometime, here before the end of the season.
Love your balance. Looking at these numbers, it's incredible. Rint with 7 a game, Youngworth 7 a game, Fleege 9, almost 5.5 assists out of Fleege. I mean, Caper 7 points, 4.5 assists. Charles almost 6 points a game. Would you classify? You don't have necessarily that superstar or two. Would you consider this team, at least over the last handful of years, maybe deeper than some of your past teams almost?
Yeah,
Is that
yes,
safe to
for
say?
sure. And I forgot to mention one of the junior Henry Farrell, who
Mm.
provide, I think got into double digits against Appleton West, was playing some very meaningful minutes at the end of the game of the Oshkosh North game. I mean, tight game. He was on the floor at the end. And we have some injuries going into tonight's game at Appleton East, and where actually Henry will get his first varsity start tonight. So, yes, we do have a deep team, and kind of the beautiful thing about it is if there's a group of five that don't have it going, I've got options, and I can change the group, I can change the dynamic, I can change the chemistry, and that's there's a lot of pieces, and my biggest challenge and our coaching staff's challenge this year is to put those pieces together the right way. Like, if we were cooks, we have the ingredients. It's up to us to mix those ingredients together the right way, and to this point, it's been fun. They bought in. We tell them all the time that our depth is our strength, and we need to relish that, and we need to capitalize on it.
Yeah, it's a roster that's very intriguing from a size standpoint too. Talk about maybe some of the size matchups that really give you guys an edge going into almost each and every game. When you're talking about Rowan Caper, for instance, 6'9", and then Youngworth is a 6'7". I mean, you have some serious size in this basketball team.
Yeah, we have size, and the important thing is not to just is to play big, right? It's not just about being big. You have to play big, and
Yeah.
that's always the challenge to those kids at the high school level, and we're getting there. We're slowly but surely working our way towards where we think we can be in that regard.
So we talked about your 4-0 start, big win against Oshkosh North. Anytime you can knock off a team like that on the road, 51-47, that's huge. But I want to talk about your upcoming schedule because I'm pretty intrigued by it, because you guys are going to get tested, obviously, at Appleton East this evening, and then we'll probably see you down in Milwaukee. So Concordia University, obviously the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook Shootout you get a shot at the De Pere Redbirds, and we know all about their program. Then you go to Marshfield, and then a big matchup against Kaukauna at home January 6th. So talk about this upcoming schedule a little bit, and especially that De Pere game. That'll be a really nice measuring stick for you guys.
Yeah, and most importantly, obviously, is just tonight that we play well at Appleton East. The biggest thing that we always try to get across to our kids, and even all my time coaching, is just the next game and making sure that
Yeah.
you're focused on your next opponent. So tonight is going to be a tough battle for us on the road at Appleton East. Hopefully, we can come out and play well and play better. And then, yes, we do have a stretch where, we're going to be tested, and we're going to see what we're about. Obviously playing neutral site game against a peer on the road at Marshfield, and then back at home against Kaukauna. Um, will test us and see where we're at.
Yeah, well, you got to get tested, right? Obviously, for the postseason, you want to get it tuned up and try to make that run. But yeah, should be an entertaining season for you guys. Always is in the Fox Valley Association. But nonetheless, want to thank you for your time. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, by the way, as we record here on December 23rd. So we'll finish with this. Have you got all your Christmas shopping done, or is that something your wife takes care of?
Well, fortunately, my wife is a really good in that department. My wife's she's a professional. She's not a professional buyer. She's a professional shopper.
Ah,
So she's good, and she's on top of that. And actually, I'm looking out at my basement. The presents are all wrapped, and blessed to have a phenomenal wife who takes care of a lot of stuff around the home here, for our family. And obviously,
yeah,
and actually, uh, my so I've got 2 college graduates now. Hopefully, I don't look it,
nice.
but my daughter graduated last Saturday from Whitewater. My son is working here in the valley as an engineer. So, um, my wife, phenomenal, and has been, a great support system for me, as have my son and my daughter. And great to have them both home for Christmas.
Yeah, it's awesome. I got a college son myself back home from Minnesota, so I know the feeling. But, I'm starting to think maybe instead of interviewing the coach, I'm almost thinking interviewing the wife of the coach might almost be as entertaining. We would probably hear some great stories.
It would be interesting, yeah. And
Yeah.
my wife's a pickleball, very
Oh,
big
yeah.
pickleball player, yeah, and really good, way better. Like, I can't even play really with her when she's with her group because I'm not at the same level. So she's
Sure.
yeah, loves the game and is really good. And
Yeah.
she would be an interesting.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Being a wife of a coach, I don't care what level, what sport, that's a big job. I'll tell you what, you give up a lot because you're not around a lot because you're obviously coaching basketball, and it's a 7-day a week job almost.
It takes a special person, and shout out to all husbands and wives. Obviously, there's female coaches whose husbands support them, but yes,
Yeah.
it's not an easy, not easy, and they are huge parts of why we're able to do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about I could interview husbands of coaches too. We could go that route as well.
Yeah,
No question about it. But hey, thanks Lee for joining us on Justapod. I really appreciate your time, and have a great Christmas. Happy holidays. We'll definitely catch up with you. I'm going to be talking to you on February 13th. We're going to have that one, Neenah at Kaukauna. I'll be on the call. So yeah, I'll be giving you a call on the phone. Yeah, I know you're shaking your head already like, wow, that's a long ways away, but that'll be obviously one of many challenges in the FVA this year for you guys and your Rocketball Club.
exactly. Thank you again. Hey, Merry Christmas, and thank you for all you do for high school sports and high school basketball. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Rabas, for joining us on Just a Pod. And we want to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas, obviously, and a Happy New Year. And we'll have more podcasts coming up. I think it's going to be Coach Kellett from Appleton North we're going to line him up next and talk a little Lightning basketball. But that'll do it. If you want to listen and watch, you can catch this Justapod on Spotify, also Apple Podcasts, and you can go to the justagame.com website and you can go back and watch all of our previous episodes. So that'll do it. Until next time, have a great Christmas, everybody. We'll talk to you after the 25th.